Hi guys, welcome back to our aquariums. I'm Matt. Today's video is going to be on sumps. Now, if you've been watching my channel at all, you know I'm setting up this 125 gallon tank here as a reef tank, and it was pre-drilled for a sump, which is awesome because, in my opinion, once you get into a bigger tank like this, there's really no other way to go, even when you're in fresh water, let alone salt water, simply because the amount of equipment that needs to be used, especially on a saltwater tank. You know, you got your skimmer, you got a lot of live rock, generally, in some cases a sand bed, so all this kind of stuff. And one thing that's holding up my build on this, and I know it's taking me forever to build this thing, one of the main things holding me up at this point is the sump. And I had this 75 gallon tank you can see kind of back here. It's glass. It was an old used one that I traded for some fish back forever ago, and I've had it in storage since, and I had intended on using it and putting in the baffles myself and everything, which I had started on actually before I realized something. And that is, you can't really see it in this video, but down here at the very bottom there's some hairline cracks in the tank and some what are called oyster shells, which is where the glass is kind of buckling a little bit, and so that's no good. And the other problem that I came upon, even if that wasn't an issue, was the fact that a 75 gallon tank, or at least this one is, I think it's about 21 inches tall. And my skimmer, which I purchased on sale, kind of spur of the moment thing because it was on sale, will not, the collection cup won't fit out. So it's catching on the wall here. You can't really see it, but it catches on the wall, and it simply can't come out of that 75 gallon tank unless I did one of two things. I either need to take the 75 gallon tank apart, cut the glass down on the front pane here a couple of inches so it would fit out, or I would need to cut some of the supports out. And I didn't really want to do either of those things. I suppose the preferable thing to do on either of them, or out of the two of them, would have been to cut down the glass, but even that's not an option because of the fractures down the bottom of this tank. I'm worried about, putting any kind of water weight in here. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to find another tank or build a tank. And that's actually what I've been working on. Is I went and found some free glass, some old window glass from a guy on Craigslist, and I was working on building up, or I was going to build another tank like this 75 but shorter that ran the whole distance under here. Is going to be pretty good. But unfortunately the problem I ran into is the glass was not as thick as I thought it was going to be, so it too isn't going to work. So here my problem lies in that you need thick glass, which generally window glass doesn't come in a thick enough sheet, so that's kind of difficult. I'm having trouble finding thick enough glass for it. And my second problem is height. So these both are my mistakes. Something I would advise if you're going to be, setting up a tank like this. Definitely do all your measurements. I mean, I did, but I made a couple of mistakes, and I was missing a couple of my measurements. So obviously I'm a few inches off, and that's a problem for me. Anyways, moving past that explanation of why it's taking so long, we're going to talk about sumps. Now, on a saltwater tank, like I said, you really have to, a big saltwater tank anyways, you really have to have a sump. And even on a small saltwater tank, I mean, if it was up to me, even nano tanks would have little tiny sumps under them just because it's a great place to put equipment that's ugly, like heaters, especially skimmers, things like that, and they generally work really well down in there. A few of the drawbacks to them would be that you need a return pump, which, depending on the size of your tank, it can range anywhere from $10 for a return pump to, $200 is kind of what you want to do with it. The other major drawback, again, is the space under your main tank. I built this stand really high up here, even in this anticipation, and it's still a couple inches shorter than what I actually needed. So definitely, if you're working with a store-bought stand or something like that, you really need to take that into consideration when you go to look for a sump. Now, you also have a couple of options. Personally, my personal favorite is always glass. I always love glass tanks for sumps, for display tanks. I generally shy away from acrylic and anything, but when it comes to sumps, I'm flexible on the acrylic because it really doesn't matter as much. My main drawback for acrylic on a main display tank is it scratches up easily, it yellows kind of over time, and I just don't care for the look, personally. But on a sump, it doesn't matter. It's under your tank. No one gets to see it. And that's what I have right here. This is actually the sump that came with the tank, and it's acrylic. it's too small for what I want to do on this particular tank, or at least what I felt comfortable with going with. But it is a good little sump for, you know, any kind of tank. The other thing that you can use between, other than these two options, is I've seen people use Rubbermaid tubs, the plastic bins you get from, you know, any major grocery store, or not grocery store, but any kind of store like Walmart, Home Depot, any place like that sells, you know, the plastic storage containers. Seen people link those together, or just use one really big one. As long as it's supported well and the water won't buckle it out, that works great too. However you want to go, there's really anything that holds water and is safe for the fish, you can use as a sump. It just depends on how fancy you want to go with it. So there really isn't any, like I said, any kind of set rules for a sump. I've seen, you know, fancy $2,000 sumps, or, you know, $50 sump that works exactly the same, made out of something else. It's really whatever you can get. And if you're going to be making a homemade one, they are really simple to make. What I would suggest is, again, because I like the glass, go look on Craigslist or a local, you know, posting or whatever. Find a used tank. Generally, for the bigger tanks like this, you know, you can get away with a 55-gallon tank, no problem. Those are really common. Or a 40-gallon Brita. Those work really well too. They're not as common on Craigslist and stuff, but you can get those at Petco or any other place like that. You know, for $1 a gallon on their $1 a gallon sales. So, and then, you know, you just go get some used glass, or you go buy some panes of glass or some plexiglass and some 100% silicone sealant, and you put in the baffles yourself. Now, when I finally get around to either buying another tank on Craigslist or finding proper size glass, I will have a build of how I will set up my baffles and everything like that, and my personal, you know, preference on plumbing and how I do it. But I don't know how far out that is, so we're going to see. If I can't find something soon, I'm probably just going to put a Rubbermaid tub under here temporarily so I can get the water in here and at least get it cycling and everything. So we'll see how that goes. Try and update you when I get the time. Hope you all have a great Christmas, and that's the end for this video.